Good evening, everyone. It is 5 o'clock on Monday, January 12th, 2026, and I am calling the regular Wausau School District Board of Education meeting to order. Ms. Peck, roll call, please.
Sarah Brock. Here. Charles Berger. Brian Cooper.
Here.
Nick Boucher.
Present.
Pat McKee.
Yes.
Jennifer Pioli. Here. Corey Sellers.
Here.
Lance Trollope.
Here.
Jim Boucher.
Here. Please stand and say a pledge of allegiance with me, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is the mission of the Wausau School District to advance student learning, achievement, and success. And I'm going to ask to see if we have anyone to speak to us.
There are none.
There are none. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, approve the consent agenda. Appointments, additional staff, replacement staff, contract increases, separations, resignations, contract decreases, terminations, leaves of absence, retirements, minutes from the regular session of December 8th, 2025, special session of December 15th, 2025, and the special session of January 5th, 2026. Payment of bills and budget status and investment report, and the donations to the district. Rotary Club of Wausau Marathon County Hunger Coalition, Getch's Welding and Machine Incorporated, Inspired by Design LLC, Heidi Sorensen, American Online Giving Foundation, D. Thomas Smiley, Jim Zellick, and Roxanne Zaromsky. I'm seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended with great gratitude for donations to the district.
So moved. Again.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 7. Old occurring business, there is none for this evening. We'll move on to agenda 8, new business. Approve the 24-25 audit report. Amber Ebert from Hawkins Ash and CPAs will present to the board the results of the Wausau School District's June 30th, 2025 audited financial statements. Welcome, thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. So I will just be paging through the financial statement and talk about some areas and kind of skip over some other ones. So I will fast forward to page 3. So this is the independent auditor's report, basically just stating that we issued an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best opinion for an audit. So there were no concerns. Pages 6 through 17 is the management discussion and analysis. This is basically just a huge summary of the remainder of the pages. So if you wanted just to read a few pages instead of, an 80-page report, this would be the place to look. But I'll go through in more detail some of these topics. Page 18 starts the statement of declaration. This will show this includes all the debt, capital assets, WRS, any of those type of benefits. So page 19 shows that there was an increase in that position of 14.3 million. And there's also a change in accounting principal line, which as you can see is a $9.8 million decrease. This was due to a new accounting standard that came out this year. So we now have to report all sick pay and vacation pay on the government-wide statements. Basically just any vacation or sick pay that can roll forward to next year has to be reported. And being a bigger district, the number is pretty large. Page 20 is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. So these would be all of the major funds and then the combined non-major. And then page 21 would be the income statement side. So overall for the general fund, the net change in fund balance was a decrease of about 2.3 million this year. The debt service for referendum was about a $67,000 increase. The other capital projects fund had a $37 million decrease. And then overall, the non-major funds had a $140,000 decrease. So overall, all of the funds combined had a $39.2 million decrease this year. Page 22 is just a reconciliation on how we get from the government-wide, so all the capital assets and everything to match the fund balance. So overall, about 33 million was related to capital assets, a change of 204,000 in employee benefits, and then 2.7 million of WRS, 134,000 of the WRS life insurance, and 2.4 million of OPEB, and then debt principal payments of 20.6 million. Page 23 through 24 is the fiduciary funds, so the scholarships and employee benefits. Overall, the change in that position was 11,000 increase in the scholarships and a $514,000 increase in the employee benefit. Pages 25 through 49 goes through the notes. So the first through page 30, so page 25 through 30 is just kind of a summary of each line item. Nothing too important to look at, just standard verbiage. Just if you want more detail on what the line items consist of. Page 30 starts note 2, which is the cash and investments. So this just shows a summary of all of the cash and investments for the year. So overall, about 40 million of investments. And the school had 37 million of bank balances. Note 3 on page 31 goes through capital assets and the leases and submittals, which would be any IT agreements. So you can see there was about 36 million of construction in progress added in the year, and then another 468,000 of assets added for land improvements, buildings, and equipment. And then as far as the leases and the submittals go, basically once the contract is done, it shows as a decrease. So there was 1.1 million of leased equipment completed for the year and 160,000 of submittals completed this year. Page 33 starts the long-term liabilities. So you can see all of the debt for the year and then what will be paid in the 25-26 school year. You can see the compensated absences, vacation, and sick pay line. Those are the two new ones we had to add this year for the new GASB that came out. And then the WRS liability and life insurance are both liabilities this year still, and all other people. Page 34 shows the remaining debt payments until the end of the debt. So through year 2040, so there's about 80 million of bonds left, 2.2 million of notes, and 197,000 of leases. Page 34 through 39 goes through WRS. This is just standard template that we're required to follow. So like I mentioned, the WRS is still a liability. There's really nothing that this district can do to control that. It just is, however, the WRS calculates that out for the year with all of the participants. And then page 39 starts the life insurance portion of WRS. Same with this, the standard verbiage, and it's also a liability this year. And then page 43 is the interfund. So this would be any transfers between funds. So there was employee benefit trust and the general fund transferred money, and then the general fund and the non-referendum debt service transferred fund, or money for the year. And then page 44, this is the OPEB footnote, again, same as WRS, just standard verbiage that they're required to follow, nothing too exciting. And this is also a liability still this year. Page 47 is the fund balance in that position, just a bigger breakdown. So restricted for general, self-insurance of 1.2 million, the common school fund, which would be any unspent common school funds for the year, was 24,000. The referendum approved debt service for principal and interest is 8.5 million. Other capital projects is 28.4 million. Non-scholarship donation for specific donor expenses is about 1.8 million. Food service is 2 million. Non-referendum debt service is 78,000 for principal and interest. Long-term capital improvement trust fund is 2.5 million. And then you get to committed, which would be the community service of 484,000. And then assigned for general is 26.7 million. And then pretty much the same thing for the governmental activities portion. Note 11 shows any current contracts. So we always report the next CISA contract and then also the current transportation. So there's roughly 14.4 million of transportation fees left. We just based it on a rough, usually like a 3 to 4% increase each year, depending on what the contract says. And then page 49 is the self-insurance. So this year the ending liability was 4.2 million. Last year it was about 5 million. And there were 24.5 million of claim payments and 23.8 million of claims. And then 14 is that change in accounting principle for the vacation and sick pay, so you can just see how that affected the balance this year. Page 50 is the budget for the general fund and special education fund. So overall, the expenditures were greater than revenues in the final budget by about 775,000. And the actual amount ended up being expenditures over revenues by about 2.3 million. Page 51 just shows the expenditures that were over budget. Just a list of them. Really the biggest thing is that as long as the total expenditures weren't over budget, that's really the biggest thing we look for, otherwise that could be non-compliance. And that didn't happen this year, so nothing to worry about there. Just more so making sure everything is coded correctly on where you expect everything to be spent. Pages 52 through 56 are the WRS, life insurance, and OPEB healthcare reports. So you can see a 10-year average for WRS, how it was an asset or liability, and the covered payroll, any contributions throughout the years. So you can see it does kind of flip back and forth between assets and liabilities. It really just varies every year. 55 would be the life insurance page. So again, you can just see with the liabilities throughout the years, covered payroll, and any contributions. And then 56 would be the OPEB healthcare. Not quite through 10 years yet, since the district hasn't had it for quite that long, but it will eventually get its way to 10 years. Page 57 and 58 are the non-major funds. So I'll just quickly go through those. So the non-scholarship donation fund had a $159,000 increase. The food service had a $400,000 decrease. Community services had a $4,000 decrease. The debt service for non-referendum had a $6,800 decrease. And then the long-term capital improvement trust had a $111,000 increase. So overall, all of the non-majors had about $140,000 decrease from last year. 59 would be any charter school specific costs. So this usually is zero because if you're in the same building for schools, then the utilities are being shared, so really, this generally is always $0. Page 60 goes through all of the federal grants received for the year. So overall, there was 12.6 million received this year, and 10.8 million was spent, and a remaining for little under 2 million to be spent next year on top of what we will get in 25.6. Page 61 goes through the state awards. So there was 94.4 million received and 94.4 million spent, with about 553,000 to be spent in the 25-26 school year. And then page 63 is just the government auditing standards report. This would be where if there were any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, they would be noted here. But the district does not have any, so that's good. And then 65 through 67 is just a single audit report. Again, just standard verbiage, nothing too exciting there. 68 and 69 are the schedule of findings and question costs. So if you look down the pages, you can see no everywhere. So there's no material weakness, no significant deficiency, no non-compliance. We like to see the no, so everything is perfect there. No concerns on our end. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is this is in those charged with governance letter. So every year we comment on any management advisory comments that there might be for the year. So last year there was one, which was GASB statement number 101 for compensated absences. This is now resolved since that was implemented this year. And then this year we added GASB statement number 103, financial reporting model improvements. This is just an FYI that there is yet another new standard coming out next year to be aware of. And then we also added timeliness of requested audit items by audit fieldwork, basically just making sure that the date that we give to have everything to us by is met. And then same for the auditor aid certification. We were unable to meet the September 12th due date due to not getting the audit items on time. But I don't suspect that to be an issue next year. I know there's a lot of changeover, and so I don't think that'll be an issue next year. But that's all I have. Otherwise, any questions for me?
We'll have some questions, but I just want to say, Ms. Channel, you're cutting your teeth on some big things today, presenting to us. And Amber, this is her first day basically here, and welcome, and all the work you're doing at this point in time. So I'm going to open it up to questions for the board. Remind everybody that who are watching us today that we have seen this before. It's all been sent out to us previously, so it's not like we're just running through this, and also this has been presented throughout the year, so we have a pretty good grasp of what's going on as a board. So anyone?
No, I think we say it every year. If we ever have one that doesn't come back good, then we'll have lots of questions.
Right.
We'll schedule more time, but when it comes back like this, there's a lot more to go over.
Not really. So well done, and greatly appreciated. So at this point in time, I'm seeking a motion for the approval of the 2024-25 audit report as presented.
Second.
Any follow-up questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Amber, appreciate the work you put into this. Agenda 8B, moving right along. WAS resolutions. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. Our designated delegate to the convention is Sarah, and I'm going to throw this ball to you, Sarah. So let us know what you think based on what you have looked at, and then we'll open it up to questions from the board about what we should be doing with specific resolutions that have been proposed.
So I know that all of you have read all of these policies deeply, and are prepared with your thoughts, ideas, and questions. Just go ahead. There you go. Good job. So I'm gonna start by just kind of going through them. If I have a thought, I'll share it. Otherwise, I want to make sure that everybody is having a chance to voice their opinion if they have a strong one. The first one on your packet is about the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, or WPCP. Right now, that the cap, which has reached 10% of the district's students, is scheduled to be eliminated based on current standards and practices and what's been in place. So this is a resolution that would maintain that enrollment at 10% instead of taking it away, which was the original plan. I might sound a little pedantic, but for those that haven't been around a long time, basically the cap started at 1% of district enrollment and then increased 1% every year until it reached 10%. And then the plan was, once it reached 10%, to remove the cap altogether. So the resolution is to maintain the cap at 10% instead of eliminate it, and then maintain the income cap of 220% of the federal poverty level. That is not scheduled to go away. I think they were just including the language to keep it consistent. Any questions or thoughts from our board in terms of supporting or not supporting that particular resolution?
I would support it. Just for anybody listening, this is just basically WASB stating what their members' opinion is. It doesn't, or whatever it
And these,
counts for or not. But,
right, and these resolutions are put in by the many districts, 421 districts in the state of Wisconsin, put into the committee that's been meeting for the last 3 months. And the last 3 months, those committee members that are designated from different regions of the state of Wisconsin, we're in Region 5. I'm the director for Region 5, and I have directed 2 people, one from DC Everest and the other one from Stratford, to be our Region 5 designees at these meetings that have been preceding us for the last 3 months. They then preview the policies that come in front of them, and they put the booklet together through WAS to send out to all the membership, to let the membership decide by looking at this as individual boards like us right now, designating our person that's going to be there voting to whether we vote yay or nay on this. I will say, from my point of view, usually by the time it's gone through to this point, they're pretty good resolutions, and there's not a lot of things that we wouldn't support, but there might be, as I said to Sarah, there might be a policy that we may not, because of local control, not agree with, to vote no against. So when all of the delegates from all of the districts get together, that's what we're going to be voting on at the convention next week on Wednesday. So I hope I've given a little bit of an understanding.
And just for those
Sarah has been looking at this specifically as well on our behalf.
And for those listening, as Jim mentioned, these do come into the committee from districts. They're considered. Not all of them are moved forward. Typically, they are edited and changed and adjusted and merged and put together in a way that is more representative of all of the districts and the state goals as a whole. And so before we get them, they're pre-vetted.
Correct, and what we try to do, once we are at the convention and we're voting on all of this, we try to get the membership to not tear it apart grammatically, because grammar does not really play. We spent 2 years ago almost 3-4 hours just on grammar with, I want to say, 400 and some delegates. It was a rather long day, and we made the comment at that time, these people preceding have looked at it grammatically, and we don't need to be doing the grammar aspect.
Not enough coffee in the world.
Exactly. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So Lance, I agree. I'm comfortable supporting this one. So anybody on the board that feels differently? So let's move on to number 2. This one is about revisions to how the state does the district and school report card processes. They offered, this is a creation of a policy as opposed to an amendment or removal. They have 5 specific pieces within it that they'd like to adjust or change. One is that achievement and growth should be valued equally. The second is that they recommend eliminating the practice of grading student proficiency based on free and reduced lunch population sizes. The third is to take into account schools with a high degree of AP, IB, dual credit, career and tech education, and extracurricular offerings. The fourth is to include fiscal efficiency in report card scoring. And the fifth is to, any changes to the report card scoring and or relevant statutes should be considered with input from school leaders from all CCs in the state. When I looked at this, there's obviously a strong link in terms of A and B. Right now in the state of Wisconsin, in districts where there is a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch, growth is weighted higher than achievement. And in those with fewer, less poverty, less economic disadvantage, achievement is considered weightier than growth. So this is clearly designed, both of those 1 and 2 are designed to change that. So the arguments kind of in favor or against would come into play around that specifically.
Well, I can give some arguments against it. I hate this one, frankly. I would, in general, probably favor just voting no to this one and just keeping report cards the same instead of changing it yet again. If the only thing they were asking for was E, that makes sense. D could make sense if I knew what that meant. I'm afraid of where that would go. But I definitely don't agree with A and B. And I think it's submitted by a district with a low amount of poverty, which would probably serve their report card scoring well, but I don't think that it makes a lot of sense, because if I have two schools, one that's high poverty and one that's low poverty, and they have the same proficiency, that tells me the school with the high poverty is probably doing a better job. That whatever their curriculum is, their teachers, their plan, whatever it is, if you're just gonna end up doing it based on proficiency and not taking poverty into account, you're essentially, the report card is going to basically just designate which are the wealthy schools and which are not, because that's pretty much how the proficiency tracks. The wealthy schools score much higher, schools that have high poverty score much lower, and that's basically what the report card would become if we went down this path.
I also think, for me personally, growth is such an important metric because it absolutely reflects what the schools are doing. You can take a student from point A to point B and demonstrate that. That's the effort and work of the district, as opposed to a student who comes in high achieving and remains high achieving. The school may or may not be doing as much benefit to that student. And I do agree, this feels like a district that is already high achieving and low poverty level and wants the credit for that.
I won't state the district, but yes, I'm looking at you very much so.
So I would agree with Lance on the no for this, for me personally.
The other side of that coin though is looking at achievement without free and reduced lunch eliminates that as a crutch for accepting whatever grade, whatever district, continuing to be below the expected levels and saying, yes, incrementally they did grow, but they're still below what the expected achievement level is. And quite frankly, for the last 13 years, I've struggled with that one myself. No, I don't feel strongly enough either way to say that I would, yay or nay to this one, but I've never quite understood why why the state looks at a district and says, okay, so you have free and reduced lunch at X%, so we just don't expect you to have as many kids at that proficiency level. To me, that's selling short the kids and the families in that district, and it's kind of a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion. And I totally understand the arguments on the other side of that, I don't know, I struggle with accepting lower bars just because of poverty level. And I get there's other things that go along with it, but to me, this at least normalizes it and lets everybody shoot for the same goal.
But it's supposed to be an evaluation, it's not supposed to be a test of how well the students did, it's supposed to be an evaluation of how well the school did.
Right.
And so if we know that the students from, wealthy families versus students from high poverty families, that there is a drastically different achievement level, proficiency level between those two groups of students.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the school with very low poverty is doing well from a proficiency standpoint doesn't necessarily mean they're actually doing any better than the school with high poverty that has a lower proficiency because of the student population that they're serving, which is why having growth be a bigger factor in the high poverty schools makes sense, because you're basically evaluating the school on not the proficiency. There's proficiency still part of the factor as well, it's not like it's ignored, but you're giving more weight to growth in the high poverty schools. That's how it's set up currently. There's more weight to growth in the high poverty schools.
No, I get that, but I guess my point would be, so what if we looked at districts and said, okay, how many parents in a district work first shift versus how many work second shift? And we would expect those families that whose parents work second shift perhaps to have lower achievement, et cetera, because maybe they don't have as much time with their kids after school. That would be another way to look at it. So I always go to, you can slice and dice this however you want. At the end of the day, I think we should be expecting similar goals and similar results from everybody, and it should not matter how much you make or don't make, when your parents work or don't work, if you're on the east side or the west side of the tracks. I struggle with always segmenting this stuff out.
But it doesn't. I mean, the student who gets a score of, let's call it needs improvement, and I'm just making it worse at this point. Regardless of their free and reduced lunch status, they have a score of needs improvement. That doesn't change.
Yep.
But that school, if that student has gone from, again, making up words, poor to needs improvement, that's massive for that student. And if they go from needs improvement to satisfactory, that's massive for that student. Perhaps more massive as far as the work that the school has put in than a student who comes in high and stays high, or comes in proficient and stays proficient. Because I want to go on record as saying I completely agree with you that all of our students can achieve. And I think we should always make sure that that's very clear. Regardless of what they come from, we believe that all of our students can succeed and achieve. I guess for me, I'm looking at the report card of the district as how much positive work the district did for its community, as opposed to, because the student is still going to show his needs improvement or non-proficient or whatever else it might be.
Right, and I guess that is exactly my point. It's great that they made it to a needs improvement, but we're still sending them out into the world below what everyone else has stated is the acceptable level of performance in whatever subject.
It's an interesting question. If we say we can't, and this is where, having worked in Massachusetts as a teacher, this is where high stakes testing came in, right? That where we said we're not going to graduate, where Massachusetts said we're not graduating our kids until they hit a certain point. And that was terrifying.
Right.
And I have horror stories
like
about
you said,
that.
I
But
don't
yes.
want to bog us down. I'm not opposed either way. I just say it's always something that has frankly weighed on me for 13 years.
But I think it can be two different things, because I think as a district, we should not just say, oh, okay, well, it's a high poverty school, so we don't care about proficiency. Of course not. Our goal is, as I've said many times, is to get as much improvement out of every kid as we can, whether it's somebody who's a genius or somebody who's a struggling learner, as much improvement as we can. But so for our goals, but the goal of these report cards is supposed to evaluate schools. And like Sarah said, if a school takes a child from very low to average, they're probably doing a better job than the school that takes somebody as average and just keeps them at average. If you have a school that, if you have all this proficiency, because obviously we're stereotyping here, but it is true, the wealthier schools, the students come in more proficient. So it's not as it's not as much of an achievement to keep a proficient child proficient as it is to take a child who's way behind and have them make a bunch of growth. That tells me that school is doing a better job. I'm not saying the school that's keeping the child proficient is doing a bad job, but the school that's showing growth, that school should be evaluated highly.
So does anybody else want to chime in on this one, or do we have strong opinions?
I just wanted to share that CISA 9 meeting last week, we went through all of these. The comment on this one was about not changing, not supporting it, which was just one in favor of not, we were not 50-50, we're 60-40 in not supporting this at the CISA level, because you're constantly changing the metrics and assessment tools and who can follow this. So leaving it the same for a year or two kind of thing, so that the taxpayers and other people can understand actually how the school is doing.
I think that's a big point. Being CISA 9 affiliate and knowing how far north CISA 9 goes and reaches, I know the people that you were probably discussing that with. There's a lot of poverty up north, and bottom line is they're doing a lot of good things. Unfortunately, we do need to be looking at the report card, because it's a state report card that comes out. We do need to be aware of it. And there are deficiencies in the report card that sometimes hurts schools because of the score in which they receive from the DPI report card. I'm just throwing that out because it's something that happens. But you're talking about a very good point about poverty and how much more has to be done, et cetera, et cetera. So you said that CISA 9 pretty much said no.
Yeah, this one there was a couple more to not support it than to support it, yes.
What are you saying is I'm the board?
No one said that.
That's what I got out of it.
No one said that.
Corey said I'm
If
the
we
board,
receive
which I
something-
think we're good.
Are we comfortable as a board supporting a no vote?
Even just a thought, as a way to expedite this, I think last year, we went through the ones that we had issues with not supporting.
Correct. Instead of all of them.
Correct. Do
Yeah.
we want to do that again?
That's why I kind of threw it over to Sarah
I'm
that
comfortable with that.
instead.
Okay.
Sarah, you've gone through it very, very closely with a fine tooth comb, I know that, and I have as well, because I know it's gonna be a big thing at the convention. If you just wanna guide us through what might be some controversial items that we should be voting on, and the others, I would imagine, and I'm just gonna fall on this side, like I said at the beginning, we have a lot of people that are already working on these policies for 3 months, so it's not something that's gone through real quickly. They've perused it.
So we'll do it this way then. Is there anybody who would like to have an argument for number 3? Are we comfortable saying yes to number 3? Moving on to number 4. Number 4 is the amendment to a resolution on authority to schedule referenda. This is the one that would basically amend it to eliminate the limit of 2 referenda per calendar year. Is there anybody who wants to argue that we shouldn't remove the limit? The board is comfortable saying yes?
I think a limited 2 is reasonable, just because any additional referendums seems to be a poor budgeting yourself and a waste of time for the people to host a referendum and then actually take the time for voting and everything else when, hey, you're just, now you know, we need improvements, so the next time, the next calendar year, then you can do it at that time.
I think and everybody else can jump on this too, but I think the issue is less passing more than 2 per year, and what do you do when one doesn't pass, or the second one doesn't pass, and you're looking at an unbalanced budget, or they need to severely cut, and you no longer have the ability to do a third.
Yeah.
That's how I read it and understood it, because I don't disagree with you. I think if you're passing,
Yep.
2 a year, that's probably.
I've always thought a referendum, although it's a lot of work, even if you get a no vote, that's not a waste. That's like the best way, we try to do surveys, but the best surveys when you actually go to referendum, is you get feedback and you find out whether, and then you come back and make changes, okay, community that support it. And so, I could see why you would make changes then and be responsive to it and try it again in a different format.
And I think that's what we have done with our referenda. In fact, that we have asked a question, and if it's no, we go back and take the no vote. The community has said no.
We've never done it this often that this would ever
No,
impact us
no.
anyway,
That's
but
what I was gonna
it
say,
doesn't
this,
impact
but
us.
this one is kind of a waste of oxygen because it self-polices itself. You schedule 6 a year, we can't get our, they're hard to get 2 together for a year, much less 3 or 4, so. I'm fine with any way you wanna go on this one, frankly. I just don't see it being impactful.
So number 5 is the substance abuse disorder and treatment aid. It's a resolution to create a new categorical aid fund to support school-based substance use disorder prevention and treatment related services. Anybody want to argue against this? Moving on to 6. Vocational transition for students with disabilities. This is a resolution to amend the existing funding for children with disabilities to support a more collaborative relationship with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. Anybody want to argue against this one? So making my judgments. Number 7. I anticipate this might bring up some conversation. Universal state covered meals. So this is a resolution to create state legislation to establish and fund a universal school meal program to cover the cost of all student meals not covered by federal programs. This is something that's been fairly consistently in the news and in debate. There are strong pros and strong opinionated cons that come out with this one. Anybody want to argue against or for? We'll start with against. Great. Excellent. Number 8 is Public Education Endowment Fund. This is the creation of a resolution to create legislation that creates a public education endowment fund to be invested on behalf of Wisconsinites. I'll be honest, I've struggled with figuring out exactly what this would look like, how it would be funded, and what it would do. Thoughts? Jim, do you have a stronger understanding of what this would actually look like? Because the way they have it phrased in the rationale is it would be a fund to supplement equalization aid as another aid mechanism, which on paper sounds great. I'm just asking questions as to where the money is coming from, how it would be funded, and how it would work.
That's why it won't be funded.
So we'll
That's why
create
it
it and it
won't
won't
be
be
funded.
funded, right?
It won't be created.
It's not gonna go.
So this feels like busy work.
It'd be great.
Busy work, 100%.
So I'm fine voting yes, because I love a funded public endowment fund. But realistically speaking, it won't get funded. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, just sorry to go back, but just clarifying from the pre-reading that I would not agree with all meals to be paid, no matter the student.
Okay.
So if you can afford a meal, then why should everyone else have to pay for it?
And I think that's the biggest argument that's going to be on the floor as well. This has been a policy change for the last couple of years. It's been brought to the group, and it has been voted down because of the comment that people had said, people that can afford their lunches, let them pay for the lunches, and those people that can't afford the lunches, we should pay for the lunches and move forward. We got free and reduced through the state and deal with that already. Why should we just carte blanche give free meals? That's the argument you're going to get.
And
I'm just giving that to you.
Heavy waste with free and reduced meals, where many times you see children who get free meals throw away half their food off their trays. We've all been to schools, we've all seen visited and have lunches and stuff like that, where people who pay for it have more viability that they're gonna eat the entire thing or be more respectful of the food, where people who don't have to pay for something, they'll waste it and throw it away. I'd all be for looking at even more restrictive on free and reduced meals, just because I don't think everything should not be free.
I didn't say that I had a problem with voting with it, because I'm kind of torn on it, but to play devil's advocate, the other side of the coin would be, from a district standpoint, the amount of time and money that we spend trying to implement the free and reduced lunch, and then trying to collect on and not getting paid from all the people that don't qualify for it, but yet don't pay for their lunch, but yet we don't make their kids go hungry, we still give them food anyway, and we just eat it. Like, no pun intended. And so we have all kinds of meals that just not paid for, we just have to eat that cost. And then the other argument that I often hear is that we have a constitutional mandate to educate kids. Parents have a legal requirement to have their kids in school, and if you're going to force these children to be in school, they need to have food during the day in order to take part in school. And so part of their learning and part of the requirement for being there is you gotta feed them too. So, we feed prisoners, we don't feed students. Whether we should take the money from the prisoners and use it to feed students, is that what you're suggesting?
Hopefully our food is better.
Don't count on it.
Okay,
Alright. So moving on to 9, which is an amendment to an early childhood education funding and public-private partnerships. This would, from understanding the additions, all publicly funded 3K and 4K schools, including schools receiving voucher funding or funding through public agencies other than DPI, must have the exact same accountability, reporting, and transparency standards and requirements. That's one of the big pieces. The other one is that all 4K programs should be funded through school districts with local flexibility to contract with private childcare providers, rather than having a state funding mechanism to provide private childcare providers with payment for instruction that doesn't go through the district. So I'm all for accountability any place public funds get used. That's a big touch point for me. Anybody want to argue no on this? The next two are where we're going to have to make a decision. They both reference decoupling of public and private school funding. Basically 10 and 11 are opposites. So we're going to be supporting one over the other. Number 10 supports decoupling. So it is separating the funding for parental choice and independent charter schools from the public school equalization aid formula, with instead the state taking full responsibility to fund payments for the schools. And number 11 opposes that legislation. So as a board, we need to decide if we support decoupling or oppose decoupling.
Just my 2 cents is anything giving more responsibility, more power to the state would be just reprehensible to the local districts to govern themselves.
I would add to that it also takes that money and it takes it from something that's something that we talk about in our budget meeting and that is visible to the public, and it sticks it in a little line item in a state thing that nobody's gonna see, and who knows what happens with that funding after that. So I would support, I would oppose decoupling, because I think it takes us the opposite way. It takes us towards less transparency instead of more. What we should be doing is keeping it coupled, and we should be working with our local municipalities to show on our tax bills the amount that is actual Wausau School District funding and the amount that is for charter schools. We talk about it, but how many people watch our meetings? Everybody's tax bill should say the amount that we're taxing for us and the amount that we're actually taxing for charter schools, it does not go to our district. And so I would oppose it, and I think that we should at a future meeting talk about what we can do to get some of our municipalities to join some others that are now showing that on the tax bills.
Anybody
So you're
disagree?
in favor of 11?
This would be a no to 10 and a yes to 11.
That takes care of 2 right there.
That brings us to 12, encouraging students to participate in WIAA policymaking. This eliminates an existing legislation and recreates or was encouragement. So it would basically encourage member schools to participate and engage in the policy process of WIAA. Anybody strongly disagree?
Every district should be involved because Wisconsin Association of School Boards is a membership-driven organization. The WIAA is also a membership-driven organization. It's based on membership being participants. So what we're doing right now is that we are being participants in what Wisconsin Association of School Boards are asking us to do. They want the opinion of all the districts. The WIAA does the same thing. Every school in the state of Wisconsin, every district, pays money to the WIAA to manage the athletic programs in the state of Wisconsin. WIAA does not get any money from the state, the federal. It's all membership driven. So membership, people that are members should be participating in making decisions for the policies for the WIAA when it comes to athletics. So I would strongly encourage, if you're going to be a school that has athletic programs, you should be putting your vote out there and participating. Otherwise, you have no reason to be angry when something has taken place. So I would strongly encourage all districts to be involved.
We have, so the other resolutions in your packet are ones that the committee are not moving forward. So we're going to skip the rest of the things in your big packet. If you read through those and you have a strong opinion, there's a possibility that the delegation may move one forward, but it would need a 2/3 vote. So if you have a strong opinion, please feel free to share that with me. You can send me an email on one of those, and I can take that into consideration. So the last one for us to consider was the late addition to the board packet that Cassie sent around, Cassie and Gail sent around today. It is basically the proposal is the creation of a second tier of membership called limited active members within WASB, within WASB. So currently there is a single tier of voting members known as active members. This would add a second tier of limited active members. Limited active members would have a number of the same rights. They would still be able to run for election as this is written. They would still be able to vote for WASB regional directors, vote on WASB bylaw amendments, request changes to WASB regions, and serve on WASB committees other than the Policy and Resolutions Committee. They would also retain the right to attend the convention, regional meetings, and other sponsored conferences and events. What they would lose the right to do would be to have the ability to vote on any proposed resolutions. They essentially would not send delegates. Their delegates then would not have a vote. They also could not propose resolutions to WASB. They couldn't be on the Policy and Resolutions Committee. Basically, if I understand the motivation for creating a second tier, is that they would pay less in dues because they do not feel, a district could choose to pay less in dues if they did not feel that the policy work that WASB was doing was in line with their values as a district or community. So they would not pay that piece, and they would lose that single benefit.
Being involved with WASB and knowing the district that has put this forward, and knowing that there were a couple of districts that did not get involved with WAS, I have a real problem with it. And I think the late entry, even though it is according to bylaws by the WIA, or excuse me, the WAS, to accept this, they've gone through the process, but I believe it's late. And I believe the district that we're talking about basically wants everything. Either you're in or you're not. This organization is membership-driven, district-driven. We have the opportunity to put out the resolutions out in front of the other districts, the 420 districts. We're the 21st, if you want to look at it that way. We have those opportunities. I just have a problem with this type of a resolution. It's kind of like, yeah, I like it over here, but I really don't want to be over here. I want to be in, but I don't want to be in. I want you to accept me, but I don't want to accept you. I guess that's the biggest problem. I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox on that one.
My issue came down to the fact that any of these resolutions that move forward into legislation would affect all districts in the state. So it's not like they can opt out of the results. They're opting out of paying at the same level and having a voice in the discussion. And I always feel like if you don't have a voice, you choose not to have a voice, you don't get to complain about the results.
Well said. Well said.
A voice is just a voice, but a vote is what matters.
Correct. Correct. Any other? I'm sorry for kind of getting out there, but does anybody else have any other comments about any of the other?
No, I would oppose that as well for the reasons that you both just stated, and add one more, which is you could also have the other side of the claim, which is just to say, it usually goes the way we want anyway, so let's just pay less. You don't need all of us. And we could just, every year a couple districts say, oh, let's just pay a smaller fee, let's just pay a smaller fee. And pretty soon you don't have the whole state represented.
Are we all comfortable with the no on this one? Beautiful. That's all I need.
Sarah, thank you very much for taking us through this and greatly appreciate what you're going to be doing.
Okay, and Jim and Kale know this, but I apologize, I have to duck out. I'm in the community theater production, and I was supposed to be at personnel.
Sing well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. So basically what I'm going to do is for this motion, I'm seeking a motion for the board to direct Sarah to vote the way we had discussed our conversation here.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much,
Will
everyone.
do, gang.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, agenda item 8C, the Wausau West Chiller discussion. Ms. Channel, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Operations, and Mr. Romanski, Director of Buildings and Grounds, will present the board the request to solicit bids for the replacement of the chiller system at Wausau West.
All right, good evening. So the background about the chillers at Wausau West, or the chiller system, we had this originally on our 2022 referendum, but when we decided, or when the board decided to reduce that amount, that was one of the many things that was listed on there. But it's a need that has not gone away. So we are now looking at replacing that chiller system that is a part of that long-term capital improvement plan that we have. And so we are requesting use of Fund 46, that's our irrevocable capital improvement fund, in order to fund this expense. And I'm going to have Ryan share a little bit about that, but we created, or the board created, sorry, Fund 46 back in 2016, and you have to let it rest for about 5 years. So in 2021, we were able to access those funds. And so now we are past that point where we have money that has been sitting in there that we can use for capital improvements.
Good evening. As Elizabeth mentioned, this is a chiller system replacement, meaning the current evaporative cooling system will be replaced with a conventional system. The design is complete. The RFPs are scheduled to go out tomorrow, actually. And we are looking at having a mandatory walkthrough for all the bidders on January 20th, so they're familiar with the project also. The bid date is set for February 3rd. And once those bids are received, we are looking at qualifying the bids and presenting our recommendation to the board for approval and action on February 9th. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions regarding funding portion or the?
Right, can you remind us, what was the expected cost on this? Just
One
ballpark?
point, the initial estimate was $1.3
Okay,
million.
okay.
After we went through design, it's too early to tell, but went through design, it looks like it should fall within that. But we'll find out on bid day.
All right, thank you.
Is this original to the school or has it been replaced previously?
This is a 23-year-old system. Obviously it was replaced, they replaced an existing system at one point. Somebody came in and decided that they wanted to go with these evaporative of the cost of water and so forth. They're not a common thing in Wisconsin any longer.
I'm going to put the motion out there. I'm seeking a motion for approval to pursue bids for the Wausau West High School chiller replacement project.
So moved.
Second.
Any follow-up questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was quick. You probably should stay there. Agenda item 8D, a resolution authorizing entry into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement relating to the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative and authorizing participation in the investment programs of the fund. This channel is going to walk us through that. I'm
And
just going to throw it over to you.
Yes. I have Bob Tuss here with me tonight, just so that he can help to explain this. I think I have a pretty good understanding, but I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. With the Wisconsin Investment Services or Series Cooperative, we signed this agreement probably in 2016. It went in front of the board at that time to be approved. Well, a decade has passed and we need to get this paperwork updated in order for us to be able to sign off on use of funds and moving money around into different accounts as we need to.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Thanks for bringing me back. Because 2016 is the last time we brought this in front of the board. So it's just time to update it. Sometimes when we invest money through the WISC, they look at the resolution, and if it has a stale date that's 10 years old, they question whether our board even gave us the authority to invest money. So they ask that we update these once in a while, and even better, we get Elizabeth's name on this one. So,
Even better. I'm going to keep on moving us along. I'm seeking a motion to approve and adopt the attached resolution authorizing entry into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement relating to the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative and authorizing participation in the investment programs of the fund.
So moved.
Second.
Any follow-up questions?
Yeah, just one, are we missing any documents? Because there's no way Bob Tess is here without an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, where's all the,
It-
where's all the drafts?
Yeah, we're missing something, I know that it's gotta be.
Did you notice when you asked that question, my jaw was kind of dropping?
Yeah.
What are you asking a question about?
Yeah. This is a
Gotcha.
first, Bob.
it warmed my heart that you remember that.
Never forget it.
Where are the diagrams?
All very
I
positive.
can throw something together and email it to you.
Oh, please.
Okay, any other questions? I guess not. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, you two. Agenda item 8E1, Education Operations Committee meeting, open enrollment seat availability. At the December Education Operations Committee meeting, Ms. Cartledge presented the open enrollment space determinations for 2026-27. Any additional? None? then I'll put the motion out. I'm seeking a motion for approval of the regular and special education non-resident spaces available under open enrollment for the 2026-2027 school year as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 8E2, at the December Education Operations Committee meeting, information was shared about the following co-op renewals. Co-op renewal for boys hockey East Merrill, Newman Catholic for the 26-27 and 27-28 school years. Co-op renewal for girls lacrosse East West DC Everest, Mosinee for the 26-27, 27-28 school years. Along with the third one, co-op renewal for girls storm hockey, East, West, DC Everest, Mosinee, with the addition of Merrill and Stratford for the 26-27 and 27-28 school years. Any further information? Nope. I'm seeking a motion for approval of the WIAA co-op renewals as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 9A, board member professional growth and development report. Anyone reporting on anything that you've attended the past month? I will throw only one thing, and that's the convention going on next week, that what we had talked about here today with the policies. So that's happening, going to be happening. I have nothing else. Nothing. All right, Mr. Sillage.
The only thing that I had attended as an update was CISA 9 last week. We talked about the resolutions, and then we had a presentation from staff, and I need to leave that meeting early, so I have to finish following up with Al to make sure I didn't miss anything. But that's all I have for today.
You gave us some very good information that you brought back already, so thank you. Mrs. Bushman.
Just one quick comment. I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Channel as our interim assistant superintendent of operations into her first board meeting under that title. We're very, very excited for Elizabeth. She's extremely intelligent and well organized, is going to lead us in the right direction. I'd also like to welcome Bob back to the you guys know him. He's kind of helping support us through things, and we made a stipulation, no spreadsheets, if he was going to come back and help us, so that was fun.
So you cut.
So, we're really happy to have him working with us.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would like to reference the written board member liaison district activity report and ask that this report be entered into official record.
Actually, there was none for this month, so nothing to.
It's kind of a slow time right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, agenda item 10. I'm seeking a motion to enter into closed session to discuss preliminary discussion regarding potential litigation 19.85G and evaluation of superintendent of schools statute 19.851C. I will need a roll call after that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
John Friescher,
Yes.
Rick Rusher,
Yes.
Pat McKee,
Yes.
Jennifer Dooley, yes, Corey Sellers,
Yes.
Ed Strala,
Yes.
Jim Boucher.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.